And so, again, talking to people, one of the cabin crew girls who used to work at Hazelton, she'd gone to Virgin, and she was now, I think, the chief pilot at the time's PA. And I saw her in Sydney one time. She was passing through there, and so I just was chatting to her, saying, hey, you know, how are things going? You know, what's happening? We'd had 4 guys already from Hazos go to Virgin. So I said to her, look, any chance you can throw my CV on someone's desk up there? And she goes, sure, just send it to me, you know, and I'll put it on the right desk. And like literally probably a week and a half later, I got a phone call saying, hey, would you like to come up for an interview?
Welcome aboard the High Fly Media podcast, dedicated to sharing the stories and experiences of the amazing people who make aviation happen. From pilots like me to engineers, air traffic controllers and others, I'll explore their personal journeys, the challenges they've faced and the triumphs they've achieved. My name is Damien and I'll be your host. Whether you're a seasoned aviation enthusiast or new to the field, I invite you to join me as we take off on this journey of discovery. Welcome to another exhilarating episode of the High Fly Media podcast. Today I have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Adam Barr, a seasoned pilot with an impressive tenure which includes the last 2+ decades at Virgin Australia. Throughout his career, Adam has navigated the skies aboard iconic aircraft like the 737, the E190 and the E170, and the illustrious 777. But his journey doesn't end there. With Virgin Australia, Adam has worn multiple hats, from serving as a senior base pilot, instructor examiner, to stepping into roles as diverse as recruiting, E-Jet fleet manager, flight ops safety investigator, and now senior training captain. But beyond the cockpit, Adam's story is one of profound dedication and unwavering commitment to both his craft and his family. From his humble beginnings mastering the art of flight while still in high school, to commanding the controls of these magnificent machines, Adam's narrative is a compelling testament to the power of determination and the endless possibilities that await those who dare to dream. So fasten your seatbelts and prepare for an exhilarating journey as we uncover the extraordinary life and legacy of the one and only Adam Barr. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Damien. One and only. I don't know about the one and only, but... Yeah.
Oh, no, there's only one of you, mate. With that moustache, there is only one of you.
The moustache is a recent addition.
That wasn't there 2 weeks ago when I saw you.
It wasn't, no.
No. Okay, well, we'll chalk that up to a holiday moustache.
It is a holiday moustache.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I've known of you for a few years now, and as you know, I taught your daughter, and I've nabbed Adam for the listeners. I've nabbed Adam out in the car park a couple of times and said, I really want you to come on the podcast. But Adam's a very busy man, but has been very kind to give of his time so that we can trap his story. And I have a feeling that off the back of your story, I'll get to hear some other stories that of people with the last name Barr as well, but we'll get to that.
Yep, you probably will.
Probably. So tell us about, like I mentioned in the intro, you started flying in high school. Tell us about like that genesis. Where did it start? What triggered the passion for aviation? What's the Adam Barr story when it comes to getting in the air?
I've always had, like everyone, it sounds a bit sort of,
cliche?
Yeah, it sounds a bit cliche, but I've always had a love for flying. And it kind of culminated, I guess, when I went to the States with my dad back in 82. I think I was about 11. It must have been about 82, thereabouts. And on the journey around the States, we took around about probably 12 flights over 3 weeks. And back then, you know, every time we jumped on, I was 11, so I'd go up the flight deck and say good day to the pilots. And just those flights, I think, really cemented my love of flying. It was the first time I'd really flown. Mm-hmm. So we took a 747, Pan Am 747 over to the US.
Wow.
And, it just captured me. I just went, no, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
This is my life. You know, this is what I want to do as a job.
And did you grow up here in Queensland, or are you from elsewhere?
No, from Central Coast, New South Wales.
Oh, righty.
So just north of Sydney.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What do you remember, like from being such a young age, 10 or 11?
Yep.
What do you remember distinctly when you were going onto the flight decks as a young lad?
I liked, I guess, the machinery of it all. You know, we flew on 7.2s.
I was going to say
7.3s.
Yeah.
There was DC-9,
and you'd be talking 7.3 steam gauge.
Oh yeah, 7.3 steam gauge. So when you'd walk in there, I just went, oh, this is just awesome. The smell of aeroplanes. You know, the aeroplanes have a distinct smell, and that as well, just kind of helped to kind of go, no, this is what I want to do.
To paint the picture for the non-aviation buffs, and they are out there because I do get messages to say, hey, you mentioned this. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Steam gauges, don't be concerned. There isn't a boiler on the plane. There isn't actual steam on the plane.
No.
It's a term for the older style instrumentation.
Yeah.
So if you were to Google 737 cockpit, which is what Adam's currently flying, I believe, is 73, you're going to see like 5 15-inch, 17-inch computer screens, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you Googled 1980 737 cockpit, it's the same airframe, but you're going to see a whole bunch of gauges.
Correct.
And they're called steam gauges, like the older style gauges.
Yeah.
So just wanted to clarify that for those listeners. Yeah, right. So that would have made a big impression. It sounds to me, I call myself a machine man. I love machines. I don't care what they are. I love them.
Yeah, I do too. You know, whether you know, I would be just as happy. Well, I don't know, just as happy, but I would love to go and drive trains.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I got a truck license during COVID, and I loved driving trucks.
I got one right after I got married.
You know, I drove buses on Stradbroke Island for a shorter period of time as well.
Yeah.
You know, anything sort of big in machinery,
Yeah.
I'd love it. You know, I look at the high-rise cranes over, you know, high-rise buildings they're doing. I'd love to get up there and drive one of those cranes around.
I'm the same. I've looked at doing my excavator license. I'd love to drive an excavator. You know, and to me, and it's probably what ended up leading me to aircraft in the end, was to me, the aircraft is the epitome of the machine.
Yeah.
Because it flies.
Yeah.
You know, save a rocket ship. But I think most of those rocket ships, you're basically strapped in and the computer does the job.
They take you for a fly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned in the intro there, so you started to learn to fly in high school?
Yeah, so I when I was about 14, my mum and dad got me, for my birthday, they had a friend who owned the hardware store in Toukley where we used to live, and he owned a 172. So they said to him, hey, can you take him for a fly? He's interested in flying, and that's all I wanted to do through high school. All my selections of subjects and everything were all geared around getting a pilot's license.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was about 14, 15, they said, hey, can you take him for a fly? So he did. We went up out of Warnervale. It was just a little dirt strip back then, but took off, went up around Newcastle, around my grandparents' house, you know, so they could wave, and then came back down around our house and then came and landed. And he let me have a go. And from there, it was like, I definitely want to do this. How can I do this now?
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me a couple of years, and I just, going down to the local flying school at Warnervale, I just went, what do I need to do? Back then, it was, and I cry because of how cheap it was about $90 an hour dual to learn to fly, an old 150. And so Mum and Dad said, look, if you earn half the money, we'll put in the other half money so you can start to learn to fly. Yeah, nice. So in year 12, I started and got about 17 or 18 hours up, just sort of, you know, went solo and then did, it was basic area in the training area. Didn't get to do nav stuff, and then school finished, moved on to uni. So I had those 17 hours when I left school. Was there aviation degrees at the time, or did you do something else? That in 1988, when my first year of uni was the first year that Newcastle Uni ran a aviation degree. Oh, wow. I think it was the first in the country from memory. I might be wrong there, but I think it was the first one in the country. Yeah. So I went, oh yeah, I want to do that. So I jumped on that. Went and got, did my medical. They needed another medical done, and I had to go get my eyes tested to get into the course, basically, because you did a science degree. It wasn't an aviation degree first up; it was a science degree with an aviation major. But as well as doing the degree, we did our flying training. It was kind of, you paid for it, but it was included in the whole. It was part of the curriculum. Part of the curriculum, yeah. And so I think back then it ended up being about $30,000 for a commercial license, instrument rating and multi-engine rating. Wow, that's all right. Which is less than half what I paid in 2010. Yeah, that's cheap. Yeah. So as part of that, I had to go get my eyes tested, because I started wearing glasses kind of at the end of year 12. I think all that study, not really, but you know, my eyes were just getting tired at night. You know, I had to throw a pair of glasses on. But I went and got my eyes tested in Newcastle. Came out of there, and then we got the results of that, and the optometrist had written in his little report, here's Adam's results, and I don't really think he has the eyesight to become a pilot.
Oh, no.
And my mum saw that and went, that's not going to happen. So she rang him up. She said, how dare you make a, kind of give your opinion. All we need you to do is put down the results. And so he changed the whole thing and said, it didn't change my results, but just took out his opinion,
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, without that, maybe they wouldn't have let me into the course. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. That's really cool. So potentially the first class of, call it aviation degrees, science degree with an aviation major in the country. That is really cool. Yeah. Very groundbreaking.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
It was good, we did a bunch of aviation subjects like navigation and meteorology. They were sort of tied in, but we also had to do like first year psychology, first year maths. Oh, wow. And there was a bunch of like other science type subjects we had to do. Yeah, or the course sort of science subjects we had to do as well.
And isn't that interesting, just thinking about that from what I've experienced with aviation, like even doing first year psychology, whether or not that would have helped or shaped for the future for, what we learn to be like crew resource management and cockpit resource management, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Played into it, whether that was a thing back in the late 80s.
Well, it was and KLM had they called it a human factor. It was called QFAC or something. I think KLM human factors course. And the guy in charge of the aviation degree was a gentleman by the name of Ross Telfer, and he had a couple of human factors. He was involved in human factors, and he had a couple of textbooks, and we used those. But he was our dean basically, so he was there, most times a week ago and have a chat to him about different things. But yeah, it was interesting actually doing this course and going, oh, this guy's written a couple of books. He's our dean.
That's awesome.
And it was the KLM. I think they were pretty groundbreaking in the whole human factors side of things. Yeah. We call it human factors, but that's the old term. But NTS.
That's what I know it as.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So finished school, 17 odd hours.
Yep.
Flying in the local training area.
Yep.
And then throughout uni, assumedly, you finished with your commercial.
Finished with the commercial multi-engine instrument rating.
Yeah, okay. And obviously you'd been doing NAVs all around New South Wales, I'm guessing, probably up into southern Queensland.
Yeah, a lot of our NAVs were pretty prescribed because the flying school went, okay, well, here's where we do them for, this part of the course and this part of the course. So, basically around New South Wales, I think it wasn't until I was instructing, I went back instructing there, that we got up into Queensland and South Australia and around the place.
Yeah, cool. So what was that next step after graduation?
Graduation was in 87. I thought, I want to get out of here and actually start flying as a job. So I did the diploma part of it. So I ended up with a diploma in aviation science. And after that, and that finished in 89. Right. So 89, there was a thing called a pilot strike, and so there weren't many jobs around. And I didn't want to go into instructing, but I found myself going, well, what else am I going to do here? So I eventually went, all right, I'm going to go and instruct. So the flying school that I learned to fly at had just started an instructor course. So I went back to them and said, give me instructor rating. I went through that. And on the navigation part of that instructor course, where you tear around the place with another instructor and your instructor, we went through Cessnock and refueled. And so I went across, said g'day to a couple of the instructors I had when I was learning to fly, and said, hey, look, I'm doing an instructor course, and any jobs going? And they said to me, oh, actually, we are probably looking for a couple of people. When do you finish? And come and see us when you finish.
Yeah, cool.
So I did, and got a job basically straight away. And it was a salary paying job. It wasn't one of those. There was a lot of instructing jobs where it was whatever business you can bring in, that's kind of what you get paid for. Yeah. Whereas Cessnock at the time, I think it started off, the name of it when it started off in the 70s was the Nationwide Aviation and Space Academy, or something like NASA, they called it. And then they changed the name to the Civil Air Training Academy, CATR, and they were pumping courses through there. That's where I ended up with another, I guess, about 20 other instructors. Wow. It was a big school.
That's a big school.
Yeah. So,
and what were they flying?
Piper Warriors. They had 4 Grumman Cougars for the twins. They were their twin aircraft. And they had some 152 aerobats. Right. 1 taildragger as well.
Did you got your tail wheel endorsement?
Got tail wheel endorsement.
Did you get your aero endorsement?
Aero endorsement. Only very basic one, spins, loops, rolls,
Enough for the fun.
Enough for the fun, yeah. Yeah, we taught it. We taught, like, as instructors, we got those endorsements, then we taught that as well.
That's right, because you need to be able to teach spin training or spin recovery or something.
Well, back then we didn't.
Right.
Now you do, but back then there wasn't a requirement to actually teach the spinning.
Right. And I saw on your resume of aircraft that you've flown the beautiful Duchess.
I did. When I was doing the instructor course, there was a flyaway that they were doing up to Maroochydore, funnily enough. And so the instructor who was our lead instructor for the course, he was flying up in a Duchess, and I said, hey, any chance I'll jump in with you, and you can give me a Duchess endorsement. And he did.
Yeah, right.
So, flew it up to Maroochydore from Warnervale and back again, and
lovely.
Yeah, got an endorsement out of it.
It's the one twin I've flown. That's what I did my instrument rating in, was a Duchess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have fond and terrifying memories of that aeroplane. Okay, so you're instructing, with 20-odd other instructors at probably one of the biggest flight schools, I would have thought, in the late 80s in Australia at the time.
I believe it was one of the bigger ones, yeah. Yeah, so we basically they had an integrated school. So like what you would do now, where you go along and you do a degree or a diploma plus you're flying along the way. It was kind of like that. So students would come in to live in accommodation at the airport, and they would do all their flying and their ground school, and then be pushed out the other end with all their ratings and licenses.
Gotcha.
As well as that, we were teaching university students. So the year behind me, and then the year behind that, they were coming through as well.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they also had the contract for Malaysian Airlines. So we had Malaysian Airline cadets come down in a group of 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you would get given 4 students, you and 3 other instructors would be given 4 students each, and the syllabus, away you go. And so all our briefings or all our ground school stuff would all be done. We would choose who's going to do the briefing, and then all 16 students would be in there. You'd do a briefing, and then you'd spend your time then with your 4 students going out and doing whatever sequences you're doing, whether that was, you'd go up with one and do the initial effects of controls or whatever it was. And then as you move through, you'd spend days on end almost, it seemed like, doing circuits. One student for an hour circuits, the next one for an hour. And then lunchtime, and then afterwards you might get another couple of sessions of circuits back in again. So
you must have been hitting your monthly and annual hour limits.
Yeah, we're getting close. I did a lot of circuits.
Yeah. That may come into a question I have later on about being scared in the cockpit, but we'll see. Yeah, okay. And where did you go from there? Like, where did you go from instructing at Cessnock?
Well, from instructing there, the university took the flying school over, and shortly after it closed down. Mm-hmm. And so I then found myself out of work for about 6 months. But the chief flying instructor at the time, he had gone to a small company in the Hunter Valley, Flying Chieftains, RPT, Yander Airlines.
Right.
And so I hit him up and said, hey, you got any jobs going? And I went and sort of did a ride along for a while. When I say a while, maybe a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So just sat in the right seat, just watched the operation and everything, and they gave me a go.
Yeah, right.
And so he gave me a job. Yeah. I was living in Scone for the first 3 months of that job, and then had to move to Coonabarabran. They had a base in Coonabarabran, base in Scone.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And the Chieftain, so you've upgraded
flying a Chieftain.
And for the listeners there, RPT means regular passenger transport. So not quite airline, I guess because of size, but RPT's like what Rex would fly in the Saabs and whatnot. Yeah.
A lot smaller. We only had 4 aircraft.
Right.
It was a small airline based in Singleton that was lived on a dirt strip, and it was...
And what were you servicing? Like,
we had regular runs that would start in Scone in the morning, go Scone, Singleton, Maitland, Sydney.
Yeah, okay.
And the Coonabarabran aircraft would go Coonabarabran, Gunnedah, Sydney.
Right.
And so if there were enough passengers where you could only fill one aeroplane, they would send the Coonabarabran aircraft down to Maitland. You'd meet at Maitland, and only one aeroplane would go down and back to Sydney.
Okay.
If the numbers were right.
Yeah, right. So that was about servicing the outlying communities to get people into the hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then where to from flying the Chieftains?
From flying the Chieftains, I got a job with Hazelton Airlines in Sydney when they were around.
And are we talking kind of early 90s by
This
then?
would have been mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
95, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, 95. I got that job because I missed out on a job with Cathay.
Ah.
One of the guys who I went to Hong Kong with for the interview process up there, he, funnily enough, was a Hazelton, but I spoke to him. I said, look, can you throw my CV on someone's desk there in the office? And so when we'd got back, he actually got the job in Hong Kong, so he moved up there. But, they called me probably 2 months after that, said, hey, can you come down for an interview? And I used to keep all my rejection letters. And I remember having I think it was about 11 rejection letters from Hazelton Airlines over the years.
Oh, wow.
And then I had one that I could slip in the front. It was, hey, you've got the job.
Persistence, there you go. Yeah. Don't stop.
Don't stop, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, even that, and it's interesting. I remember talking to Doug Wolf, an American chap who's now flying PC-12s.
Yep.
And him just talking about talking to people and making yourself known. And and it pays off. It evidently pays off.
Yeah, it does.
And what were you flying at Hazelton?
I started off on the Chieftain there.
Right.
I spent 2 years flying the Chieftain, and that run was basically Sydney-Mudgee.
Right.
So you'd go out to Mudgee in the morning, in the afternoon, one sector out there, spend the night. In the morning, you'd go back into Sydney, back out to Mudgee. You'd be back out there by 9 o'clock in the morning, spend the day there. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd go back to Sydney. The next guy would take over and do the same thing. So I spent 2 years doing that, and then from there got a job as an FO on the Metro.
Okay, with Hazelton.
With Hazelton, yep.
Yeah.
So I spent 3 years doing that, and I lived on the Central Coast, drove to work. There was an opportunity for me to fly the Saab, but the Saab was a lot of day trips.
Right.
And driving from the Central Coast, day trips, kind of were going to be troublesome.
So you're talking a couple of hours in the car, right?
Back then, a couple of hours in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a couple of hours home and then a couple of hours back the next day.
Yeah, so the Metro...
I'd last a week.
Yeah. The Metro was, it was a overnight service type thing. So you'd start in the afternoon about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You'd do maybe 3 sectors and end up either in Merimbula or Parkes or Bathurst.
Okay.
The next morning, you'd do some more sectors, 3 sectors, end up back in Sydney and be finished at about 11 o'clock in the morning.
Ah.
So that kind of suited me for driving backwards and forwards. So that's why.
Yeah, very nice. And how long were you flying the Metro for?
3 years.
And you were FO the whole time?
FO the whole time, yep.
Yep.
Just didn't get down to my seniority number to, get a command on it.
Yeah. And then what was the next lucky airframe you got to fly, and who was that with?
7-3 with Virgin.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I
I can tell you when that was. That was 2001.
That was 2001, yeah.
There you go.
So, I'd watched Compass 1, Compass 2. Yeah. I think there was another one in there. I can't remember, but there was this third airline trying to fill a void, or a small void in the Australia's aviation market, and so I'd watched them all fall away, and then Virgin came along in August, I think, of 2000, and I thought, it'd be great to be able to get on with something like that. And so, again, talking to people, one of the cabin crew girls who used to work at Hazelton, she'd gone to Virgin, and she was now, I think, the chief pilot at the time's PA.
Right.
And I saw her in Sydney one time. She was passing through there, and so I just was chatting to her, saying, hey, how things going, what's happening. We'd had 4 guys already from Hazo's go to Virgin. So I said to her, look, any chance you can throw my CV on someone's desk up there? And she goes, sure, just send it to me, and I'll put it on the right desk. And literally probably a week and a half later, I got a phone call saying, hey, would you like to come up for an interview?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that was in March of 2001. And then I went up, did the interview, came back. They said, we don't need you till probably about June or July. So go away, get a 737 rating, and come back and see us.
Wow. So you funded your 737 rating?
Yeah.
And where did you have to go to do that at the time?
I did that in Houston with Continental Airlines.
Right.
Yeah, I looked around online. There was a few places offering 7.3 type ratings, and that one kind of suited me, timing-wise and all the rest of it. That suited me the best. So spent 3 weeks in Houston, a week in Miami, and then another half a week back in Houston. it's pretty quick.
That's pretty cool. Well, yeah, and that's a lot to learn in a short time.
It is, yeah. And like with anything, you get a commercial license, you come out of that, and especially for me going into an instructor rating and then teaching people, you learn very quickly how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. You get a type rating, but the type rating covers your basic bare bits you need to know to actually get the thing off the ground, maybe handle a couple of non-normals and then get the thing back on the ground again.
Yeah.
After that, you really start to learn how much you don't know when you get in and start flying it around.
That's an incredible story. And it's interesting that it came down to the fact that you'd come across someone that had had contacts.
That's right. Yeah, contacts, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so then I don't get to ask who you work for next because it's Virgin.
It's Virgin. It's been Virgin, since 2001.
So FO on the 7.3.
Yep.
What has your career? I mean, I touched on some things in the introduction, but what has that career looked like at Virgin? And we're talking 2 decades plus, so 23 odd years at Virgin, or going into your 23rd year. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So the first year I was an FO, and in that during my FO training, I was about halfway through that. Was when 9/11 happened.
Right.
And so just after that, Ansett kind of fell by the wayside, and so Virgin were going, oh, all right, we're buying aeroplanes, we're filling that hole that was left by Ansett.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was only it was about 11 months, 12 months, and I'd had my required 500 hours on type at the time, and they said, hey Adam, do you want to swap seats?
Holy cow!
I went, oh. Yeah. You don't knock that kind of thing back.
Heck no. And how old were you then?
I was 31.
Far out. And command on a 7.3.
Yeah. So, they said, you want to swap seats? I went, sure. So, swap seats. It was a 5-week lead-in process before I had to kind of start.
Mm-hmm.
Crazily enough, though, during that 5 weeks was when we'd just had our 4th baby. So, we had a brand new baby boy at home, and it was like study, helping Veronica with with looking after the kids and all the rest of it. But it worked out okay. Funny story. My 4th boy is one that I delivered at home on the bedroom floor with a phone tucked under my ear talking to AAA.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
So, a couple of special things have happened to you. We'll get back to your career.
Sure.
And obviously part of that career is this check and training role, training cap, senior training captain you are now.
Yep.
Some pretty specials happened with a couple of your boys anyway. I'm sure lots of special things that happened with all of them. But tell us about the whole family thing. Okay,
so I guess all my boys have wanted to fly. They've all seen me. We moved to Brisbane for the Virgin job.
Mm-hmm.
Lachlan, my oldest, was 2001. He was about 6 or 7, and so we had the first 3 boys. Taz, the third one, he was about 18 months old.
Right.
So them growing up with me flying, kind of where they're aware of the flying and all the rest of it, most of their lives has been with me in an airline.
Right.
They didn't see the beginning part where you sort of, you're putting in your hard work around the place. So I think to them, they're going, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do that, which is great. I have never discouraged them from doing it, but I've always tried to give them a realistic picture of what you have to do to get into an airline.
Mm-hmm.
So they've wanted to do this most of their lives. So when they've come up to, Lachlan was the first one. He started learning to fly in light sport aircraft, did his first solo, did all that, and then Virgin were offering cadetships.
Mm-hmm.
So he tried out for that, and he got into that. So he went off to Adelaide, did all his training, came back, and he was flying the ATR in Canberra.
Okay. So
he was down there for about 7 or 8 months before COVID and administration and, losing his job when I did, when the 777... when they closed that part of the business.
Right.
So he lost his job same time as me. So he's now back again, though. He's flying 7.3 because he was able to come back, and which was awesome, and I got to do the first sort of couple of weeks of his training, his line training, which was a fantastic thing to be able to do. Ethan has now got a job with us as well, my second oldest. So he has just started. He's off to Milan for his type rating in a couple of weeks. By the time this comes out, he probably will be back and somewhere through his line training. But he's got a job with us now. So I'm trying to organise to maybe do the first couple of weeks of his line training as well.
What's that like, sitting in the cockpit with your offspring?
It's really good.
Does that relationship exist when you're on the flight deck?
It kind of does still. I mean, it's kind of like teaching them to drive a car.
Right.
You know, you've still got that relationship. And yes, it's a probably more formalised environment, but it's still your son. So I think you can be a little bit more relaxed in your training style, probably more relaxed. I mean, I think I'm a relaxed training captain anyway, but you can be a little bit more relaxed, and I think it makes for a good training environment.
That's cool.
That was actually good. Well, back when Lachlan wanted to start, when he got to the age where he goes, I want to learn to fly, he came to us, he said, well, we've got 4, potentially 5 people who want to learn to fly. We should buy an aeroplane.
I remember you had a 182.
Yeah, we had a 182. He said, you should buy an aeroplane and teach us to fly. They get your instructor rating current.
Wow. So that came from Lachlan.
Yeah, and we went, no, don't be silly. What do you think, we're made of money here? So he went away and he came back again with like a spreadsheet. Here's what it would cost, and if we charge this much, and we'll pay you this much to teach us to fly. We went, no, we don't have the money. He came back a third time. We looked at it and went, oh, well, maybe it might work and might help the kids out. So we did. We bought this 182. So I got my instructor rating current, took Lachlan from the light sport aircraft world to the VH registered world, did some nav training with him, and it was kind of 3 navs into it where he then got the cadetship with Virgin.
Right.
And off he went. So then I went, all right, so next boy, when do you want to learn to fly? Oh, yeah, let's start. So with Ethan, we started learning to fly. So I did all his training up to first solo in the 182 out at Archerfield. And then it kind of got hard with my roster. He was working at Virgin throwing bags, a ground crew. So his roster, my roster, and the weather kind of didn't always line up to kind of keep him moving along at a reasonable pace. And so I said to him, well, how about you just go to a flying school, do the diploma and flying. It takes you 12 months, you're out, you're done. And so that's what he did.
Right.
And
so he got his CPL before he hit up Virgin?
He got, So he had the CPL multi-engine instrument rating.
Yeah. Went
off, did instructing. He completed his ATPL subjects. And then the kind of last year, Virgin were looking for more pilots. And so the minimum requirements were 500 hours multi-crew.
Right.
Plus your subjects, which he had because he'd been flying it. He'd since got his job with Link Airways from instructing. He was instructing. He and Lachlan were both instructing during COVID up on the Sunshine Coast here. My third boy Taz came along, wanted to learn to fly, so he did the course. They were offering an integrated course there, so he did the course there. So both of those 2 boys were involved in his training as well.
Oh wow!
So you talk about father teaching a son to fly. You got two brothers teaching their other brother to fly.
That's really cool.
Which was pretty cool.
So how far has Tasman along his journey?
Taz got all the way. He's finished. He got all his flying training, command, instrument rating, multi-engine, all the rest of it, and he was working with Link Airways at the time on the ground, and they were going to be funneling him into a SAB FO position, but Taz sort of has fallen into he's got a career path he wants to explore before he goes back to the flying if he wants to.
Yeah, okay.
He's got everything he needs, but he's gone, you know what? I want to try this out. If this doesn't work, I'll go back to flying. If this does work out, I'll use flying as a hobby.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and I got my 4th boy, he's going to be starting his flying training. He wants to start around, I think, June or July this year.
Oh, so it's happening.
Oh, it's happening as
and
well.
And how old's he?
He's 21.
Right. And then your youngest, your daughter, she's
daughter.
actually not going to be a pilot.
She's not going to be a pilot. She toyed with the idea for a little bit.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, she was thinking, maybe I will, but she's settled on being a vet.
It's a great career.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. Well, that in and of itself, I think, is amazing. Even just you teaching your sons, and now your sons teaching their siblings.
Yeah.
Like, that's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Okay, so circling back then,
Yep.
We go back to the career. Sorry about that segue.
Yeah.
It was a big segue. So at 500 hours on type or thereabouts,
Yep.
you're offered a command at the age of 31 back in 2000.
It was 2000 and... Well, actually, it was 2002, so 32. We don't want to make me sound too young when I got my command. So 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
What's that look like then? And you mentioned that you were on 777s. I mentioned it in the intro as well. So obviously you got to a pretty big bird.
Yeah. So initially, command on the 7.3 within a year, which was very quick.
Mm-hmm.
But everything was expanding at the time. So from there, after a couple of years, I went, you know what? I'm looking for something else as well to do as well as this. I love the flying, but I just wanted something else to do as well. So I got myself into emergency procedures training, and became like they call it, back then it was the 2011 CAO 2011 emergency procedures approval every year when people come back for their revals.
Right.
To examines it's probably the right word, but it sounds a bit harsh, but do that kind of every year for the revals.
Do their assessment.
Assessment.
Yeah, cool.
So I did that for about 7 years, and during that time, Virgin introduced the E-Jet, and they needed trainers on the E-Jet, and prior to that, I'd become a training captain on the 7.3. So I was doing both of that. Then I gave up the EP stuff because it's just becoming too much doing the training and doing that as well. So training on the 7.3. E-Jet comes along, they say, hey, we need some trainers over here. And so I went, oh, yeah, okay, I'm happy to do another endorsement and, do some training on different aeroplanes. So I went and did that for a couple of years. Then the opportunity came up to be a senior base pilot. They were offering senior base pilot positions. So I interviewed for that, took that role on. And then after a year of that, the fleet manager on the E-Jet moved and became the fleet manager on the 330 when Virgin had got the 330s.
Right.
And so they said to me, hey, can you be the interim fleet manager till we find someone else? And I went, sure. I remember you mentioning, or there was someone else you had on the podcast was mentioning about the, what's it called, imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't actually thought, I didn't actually know there's a term for it, up until I heard that podcast and went, oh, yeah, I get that.
Right.
Because that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
I felt like, how am I qualified to do this? But at the same time, I'd been with the airline quite a while, and I felt like I had enough, knowledge to actually do the job. So took that job on. They didn't find anyone within a year. So I basically was in there for almost a year, and then the 777 job, I interviewed for that and got that.
So I want to come back to the 777.
Yep.
With the E-Jet, the Embraer.
Yep.
Actually, I've interviewed this guy for the Plane Crazy Down Under podcast many years ago.
Yeah. He
conducted my biennial flight review. In fact, the last biennial flight review I had many years ago. Guy with the name of Paul McEwen.
Yep.
You know Paul?
I know Paul, yeah. I think I actually flew with Paul a couple of times. He was a captain.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to fly together too often, but I think there was maybe one or two times where I may have flown with him, just, Adam, we need you in the right seat type thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Paul saying, because Paul was a FO, I think if I get the story right, Paul was an FO on the 37.
Yep.
And then the opportunity came up to take the command or vie for the command on the E-Jet.
Yeah.
And he said to me, the 7.3, whilst it's a beautiful aircraft, he said, if you look at like a World War II bomber cockpit, shape. He said it's very similar, but then the E-Jet was just like miles ahead in technology, and I'm sure the 737s have upgraded since then, but he said he said like press a button, engine start, all that kind of stuff. He said it was just amazing to fly the E-Jet. Similar kind of experience?
Yeah, it was great to fly. And it was actually nicer. I found it was nice to actually pole around, just to fly around in general. Loved it.
So, assuming most of your, if not all of your flying in the 737 up until the point where you were flying the 777, the 737 and the E-Jet, that was all domestic?
Yeah, at the time, the 737 was doing some up to Bali.
Awesome, yeah, okay.
So it was Bali, and they may have been doing, they had Pacific Blue, which was taking care of
the New Zealand
the New Zealand stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually do any international per se on the 737. I did 2 international flights on the E-Jet. I was lucky enough to go over and pick one up out of the factory and bring it home, brand new one. And then I was also lucky enough to, when we got rid of they sold the 170s, I took one over to Great Falls in Montana with another captain. So they were 2 really good flights. We got to fly up, going back up, was up through Japan, Russia, Anchorage.
Around that way.
And then, sort of ring the Pacific that way.
Yeah, right.
Bring it back from Brazil. We went from Brazil to just off Venezuela to a little island there, Curacao, and we stopped there for a night, then to Brownsville in Texas, and then Tucson, spent a couple of days in Tucson, had a look around the museum there, and then back via Hawaii, back home. So they were really good flights, that's kind of the only real international flying I'd done up until that point.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then going on to the 777, was that back to the right-hand seat, back as an FO?
No, I didn't have to.
Okay.
Straight in as in command, which was really cool.
What was transitioning from the 737 to the 777 like?
Well, I transitioned from the E-Jet because I'd been flying the E-Jet for 4 years, so I went from E-Jet to 777. But look, I took it as another airplane. It was bigger, it was longer. Taxiing around on the ground wasn't trickier, but you just had to be a little bit more careful. But it did have, the 777 had cameras mounted on the horizontal stabilizers and one looking at the nose wheel. So you basically had a camera set up where you could look at the nose wheel and the 2 main wheels, or 2 main gear.
Yeah.
So that when you are taxiing around, you can make sure you're not dragging your main gear, into the grass as you turn the corner, like driving a big long truck or a big long limo or something like that.
Yeah, right.
So there wasn't a lot of, I kind of treated it just like, well, it's another airplane and away we go.
Yeah.
It's like stepping out of a Corolla into a
four-wheel drive.
Four-wheel drive, yeah.
The same flight dynamics apply. Nothing changes there.
No, it was all fly-by-wire. So I guess in that sense, it was different there. But the actual flying an airplane is flying an airplane.
So in this career where you've flown this many aircraft types and you've had a fair few different roles, what challenges do you recall meeting along the way, and how did you get through those? And I don't want to plant ideas in your head, but in my mind, having 5 children myself, that would be a challenge, especially with you being an airline pilot, I assume.
It was a challenge, and I think initially when I started with Virgin, there was a lot of 3 and 4 night trips.
Right.
So I could be away and that was probably a big challenge for my wife Veronica. When we moved up here with 3 little kids, Adam's suddenly away, maybe 3 nights, home for a couple of days or a day, and then maybe gone again for another 3 nights. So, I think she's a trooper for putting up with that.
Yeah.
And but that's certainly one of the challenges. If I think about challenges, it's really just basically making sure that you're keeping up with what you have to do.
Even taking on a new type.
I don't know. I saw those extra, like the type ratings that I did. It was E-Jet and 777. I didn't see them as challenges so much.
More opportunities.
They're more opportunities, and I was actually really excited going into both of those. You're starting off in new airplane. Oh, good. There's new information. And you've got to do some study and all the rest of it. But I think probably more of the challenge is through my career would be things like family stuff.
Right.
You know, almost invariably, if something's going to go wrong at home, it generally happens either an hour before you're supposed to leave, you know, to go to work, and you'll be away for 3 or 4 days, or you've just got to where you're going and all of a sudden, you know, you ring home, how's everything going? Oh, the washing machine's on the fritz now, or, you know, something else has happened. And so that's kind of the biggest challenge that I've found through my career is things happening that are outside your control at home while you're away.
And I think back to my chat with another Sunny Coaster, Josh Volani, who's flying the A321 over in Vegas at the moment. And he just said, you know, through his career, it was missing stuff, missing birthdays, missing weddings, things like that just are out of your control.
Sometimes it happens, and I think as long as you make sure that, like I've always tried to make sure that when I'm at home, I'm at home.
Yeah, you're centred.
You know, yeah, I'm centred at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, there might be a few things I need to do for work here and there, but I'm home. I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to make sure that while I'm home, everyone's, you know, we're having a good time, and, you know, so that it's not like, you know, dad's always gone, and when
His
he's
head's
home,
always in the clouds.
Yeah, and when he's home, he's always out, you know, doing something different than being here.
One question I did want to ask, and it's going back. I'm jumping all over the place here.
That's all right.
Mine's bouncing around.
Yeah, it's fine.
I flew a couple of Virgin flights of self-loading cargo from Brisbane to LA. Yep. Is that the run you used to do?
Yeah, so when I first started on the 777, I was doing Sydney, Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
And Sydney, Brisbane or Melbourne, wherever they were going to send me from to LA.
Right. And how did you find that long haul?
It suited me. I really enjoyed it. You know, with anything, you know, the flights got shorter. You know, they seem to get shorter. Like when you drive somewhere, it might be a long drive, but the more you do it, the shorter it kind of seems to be because things just sort of happen, and you know what's coming up, and so
the milestones on the journey. Yeah,
and it just sort of happens. So the whole, you know, 13, 14 hours on the flight deck really didn't bother me, and it actually isn't 13, 14 hours on the flight deck anyway. You know, you'd break it up, so you'd have 2 breaks along the way. One might be a couple of hours, 2.5 hours. The next break might be 3 hours, 3 and a bit, depending on how long the flight is. So you don't spend the whole time sitting in a seat staring out the front window.
And was there a little room back behind the flight deck? Yeah,
so behind the flight, if you go out of the flight deck, and there's a little door that's kind of opposite the door that you walk in.
Oh, yeah.
The front door that you actually walk into the aeroplane. Yeah. Right opposite that was a door where you could go up these stairs, and there were two reclining seats that had, you know, almost like Jason recliner type things.
Yeah.
A couple of screens on each side for each person who's sitting in the seat, and behind those seats were 2 bunks. So on your breaks, you go up, watch a movie.
So you'd actually like leave the flight deck. You'd go out of the flight deck, and then chuck a left, and then there was a second story on the 777.
It was above the first probably 3 rows of business class.
Wow.
Up in their roof, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
So it was good. I mean, we carried 4 crew. There was a captain, an FO, and 2 second officers. So you'd, you know, the first officer and captain would each have a second officer with them on the flight deck when they were up there on their own.
Yeah.
And, the other 2 would go back for a break and come back. You'd swap. Those 2 would get out. They go back, have their break. So
it was
cool. Quite civilised.
That's really cool.
It was very civilised.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that about the 777. And what kind of legs do you generally do now? You're based out of Brisbane.
I'm actually based out of Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so during COVID, during administration, when they shut the 777 side of the business down, we were lucky enough to be able to come back in order of seniority back into the company because we were made redundant, basically. But when we came back, you had to take a base. They didn't have any Brisbane bases to give out. It's slowly kind of whittling, you know, getting back to where I should hopefully get a Brisbane base soon. But, so I'm based in Sydney, live up here obviously, so I commute to Sydney. And so a lot of my flying starts and finishes in Sydney. You know, training is good because, I do a lot of line training out of Sydney. You know, training new pilots on the line, but I also do a lot of simulator training too. So when they can give me simulator sessions up here in Brisbane, I don't have to go to Sydney.
Right.
I can just drive down to and from
Yeah.
sim centre.
That's cool. All right, I've got a couple of rapid-fire questions I want to throw at you.
Sure.
Can you tell us about a memorable experience you had flying a particular aircraft and what made that special?
I guess probably the most memorable one would be my first trip after being checked to line on the 777.
Right.
I mean, that was what, from day dot, I want to fly big airplanes overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first time where I took off, didn't have a training captain with me, it was just me, and off we go to LA. It was LA. Off we go to LA, and I'm in charge.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool because I kind of felt like I'd got to where, my career goal.
Yeah.
So that was pretty memorable. I guess the other one would be, training Lachlan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was also pretty memorable. Having, being able to train your son.
That is amazing. And was that by chance that happened, or had there been
I hit up the training manager and made sure that I was putting everything in place to be able to do that. Because,
right.
I mean, our rosters come out every month, every 4 weeks, and I didn't want the roster to come out with his training on it, without me going, hey, can I do that? Because then there's a lot of undoing of rosters they have to try to do, and they may have gone, it's still too hard.
Yeah, right.
So I was laying the foundations to try to make sure that happened.
That's really
which
cool.
Which is what I'm trying to do now too.
Yeah.
With the next one.
Yeah. And do you remember where that flight was from and to?
The first one was Sydney to Melbourne, I believe.
Yeah. And did Lachlan, did he have responsibilities on that flight, or was he all radios and observing?
No, he had responsibilities, and I'm just trying to think now whether he did that first sector, he flew that first sector, or whether I flew that first sector and just let him settle in. I think I might have flown the first sector and let him settle into just the aeroplane environment.
Yeah.
And then he did the next one and did the landing back into Sydney.
Well, I'm sure he's done plenty of landings in Melbourne now.
Oh, he's done plenty of landings in Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And that is very special. What's one of your most fear-filled flight experiences? Use the term fear loosely.
Yeah. No, I think probably the scariest time I've had was the first time I was on my own in the Chieftain flying in the Hunter Valley.
Mm.
I'd been doing multi-engine instrument rating training at Cessnock when I was instructing there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was my first foray into RPT.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd done some flying with the chief pilot and things, and did some runs and got used to it. But the first time I went on my own was a particularly horrible day down in Sydney. Actually, that day when I got back, they had, just after I'd left there to come back, they had like a small cyclone go through and I think ripped the roof off the RSL or something down in Botany or thereabouts. So it was a particularly rubbishy day, and I got back to, and I got back to Scone, and I was on my own because I'd just gone up there, stayed in a hotel. Veronica and the kids were back on the Central Coast, and I was just thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Why am I putting myself through this? But it was a big change. Multi-engine IFR training. You look and go, all right, where are we going today? We're going over here. Okay, there's storms. Yeah, let's not go. Whereas RPT is a different animal. The flight generally has to go, unless it's really, really bad. The flight generally you're just going, and you have to avoid the weather. Work out how you're going to do all that. So that was kind of, I guess, the most fear-filled one. It's like,
well, it was a caused reflection. So
it was.
Had to have been.
It was, yeah.
Made an impression.
Yeah, it did. When I went back and I just sat down and gone, whoa.
If you were given an all expense paid endorsement on any airframe, what would it be?
F-16.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I like the look of them. I like the fact that you seem to sit up. The window, the bubble, the canopy comes down almost not waist height, but it's kind of around that height. So I just feel like you're a bit more out in the
visibility.
out in the atmosphere type thing.
Yeah.
And they're fast, and they're it'd be fun to fly.
Yeah. And they're called the Viper.
Either that or a don't know, G750. I think the earliest 750. I saw the flight deck of that thing. It's a magic piece of kit, that one.
What advice would you give someone who's just starting out in aviation, and what resources or support systems would you point them to?
Advice probably would be don't give up, and do fly for a living because you enjoy the flying. Don't fly for a living because you want the money. A lot of times there isn't the money in some flying jobs. There just isn't the money there. Look, it's still good money, but it's not heaps of money. Like some people, when I was a kid, it was always, pilots get paid
millions,
a fortune, millions of dollars. If you fly for that reason, you're probably going to be disappointed. And then, like anything like that, if you're not happy at work, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
If you fly because you enjoy the flying, and you go into a job flying because you enjoy flying an aeroplane, you're not going to have it's not work anymore as such, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of number one.
Mm-hmm.
Get into it because you love it. And the second piece of advice would probably be just be persistent.
Yeah.
You will get a job if you're persistent.
And that's a very common thread
that
I'm hearing from especially career pilots is that whole persistence. It's the talking to people. It's the handing the resumes out. It's 11 rejection letters from Hazleton.
Yeah.
And then you got the one.
Yeah.
What about, and this is something I haven't asked anyone yet, what advice do you give someone starting out in an airline?
Starting out in an airline? Probably starting out in an airline, I would probably say to them, know your stuff, do some study, and know the things you need to know, and just do the job. I mean, you don't want to get into an airline and have managers know who you are.
Right. Yep.
Having been on that side of the company, being in management, it's best if you, and when I say they don't know who you are, for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you say do the job, it's just get in and do what needs to be done.
Get in, do what needs to be done.
That's similar to what Michaela said, that Jetstar captain, she's got in and got to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do the job,
Yeah, that's really good advice. Anything else you wanted to cover off before we finish up?
I guess the fact, for airline pilots, well, for me specifically, probably just make mention of family, and especially my wife, who's been, Veronica has been so supportive. I mean, we've been together since we were 16.
Right.
She's been there for that whole journey. She's known I've wanted to fly. So that does make it easier when it comes to, I guess, being accepting of what, the bad parts, if I call them that, the bad parts of being an airline pilot, being away.
The challenging bits, the difficult bits.
The difficult bits. So, and she's been amazing, absolutely amazing. And I think it's worth kind of, just giving her a shout out in particular, just to make sure that, she knows I appreciate the fact that, she's been supportive and so supportive.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I know there's times there where, I think to myself, man, I don't know why she puts up with me. Or puts up with the things I do.
I think most of us men think that at some point.
I think so, yeah.
No,
yeah.
She's an amazing woman.
Yeah, she is.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the High Fly Media podcast. Huge thanks to Adam for sharing his incredible journey with us, from his early days as a student pilot to his current role as a seasoned training captain. Adam's story reminds us that with passion and perseverance, the sky's the limit. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Damien.
Join us next time for more fascinating discussions. Subscribe now on your favourite podcast platform, and if you'd like to help out, feel free to leave a review. That'll help spread the word. Alternatively, you can listen to the podcast on the High Fly Media YouTube channel. Music for the podcast is titled Dance With Me by Asher Lee, available at upbeat.io. The High Fly Media Podcast, uncovering the people and passion behind aviation, one story at a time.